there, ref. That she got the ball. Yes, good afternoon, Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. Apologies, I am running late today. Quite a few things on, but I am here now. And look, it's a welcome break or distraction from the league, I suppose, depending on the result today. But it is FA Cup duty, which, look, a lot of Spurs fans have an affiliation with the FA Cup. You know, the likes of Martin and Dermot would have seen Tottenham lift a lot more FA Cups than what I've ever seen in my lifetime. But that is the affiliation. And look, with how drastic and bad things are in the league, we could really do with sort of a cup run just to give ourselves something between now and the end of the season. But look, we are playing in a special kit today. I just want to bring it up and show everybody and see what everyone's thoughts are. That's it there. And basically, Spurs will wear the special edition retro kit inspired by our unprecedented 1901 FA Cup triumph. And today, a limited number of jerseys, 1,900, went on sale at 9 a.m. this morning. I just want to sort of just quickly go around the panel and see what everyone's thoughts are on the kits, because I've been seeing it lashed into group chats and everyone sort of had different opinions whether they like it or not. And just maybe another quick question, is this the nod to our history that maybe fans have been calling out for in years gone by, or just another money grab by the club when we're in a drastic, dire situation? And start with you on this one, Stevie.
You know, at first blush, yeah, I kind of liked it, and I kind of like the long sleeves. Yeah, it's just a nice white, white off-white type of deal, and it's actually quite appealing to the eye. But here's the thing, right, Dave? You asked the question: is this a money grab or a nod to the past? And it, truthfully, it could be both. It could be a situation where they are, being quite honest with wanting to celebrate some FA Cup teams from the past, at the same time charging $150 for a commemorative jersey and making a quick 50 grand off the backs of the fans. So I mean, it could be both.
Is that how much it is?
I have no idea. I would probably assume considering shirts are expensive these days.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, even a normal jersey is about 80, 90 quid now, isn't it? Martin, What do you think? Your boy Xavi's in it. Does he wear it well?
What do you mean, my boy? Yeah. I like the idea behind it if the sentiment's right. Right, and listen, none of us here have ever seen that kit or wore it or can remember us playing in it or anything like that. So for even us older fans, it's a bit of nostalgia, which we love. And I say, if it's done for the right reason, rather than, as I say, just another quick buck. I like the fact they haven't just put it on general sale. So that tells me a bit that it is this one-off thing. But then the next part of that is, do the players even care? Right? We care and we'll get behind it, but they'll put on pink, yellow, purple, green, whatever pays them 100 grand a week. So, we'd like to think they all care like we do, but the fact of the matter is they don't, they won't, and we can't expect them to, and we shouldn't hang that on them that they ain't Spurs through and through. The ones that are Spurs through and through, we've put all out on loan or sold over the years, and we've got none left. So if it's just for the fans to, give us a lift in any way going into the game, it doesn't matter, because if it don't lift the players, it ain't going to change the outcome. But I say, I like the sentiment if it's right and it's for us, and why not? Why not?
I actually really like it, to be fair. Yeah. Dermot, I guess what I'm trying to sort of figure out, I suppose, is do you think this current crop would be inspired by the jersey and the story behind it and maybe use it as a bit of inspiration today?
Hell no. They wouldn't be inspired by Red Riding Hood. I think there's no disrespect. If this was Ange in charge, I think the players might be, because Ange would have used it within his pre-match talk, or would have used the inspiration behind it. But I think Thomas Frank couldn't inspire a mouse to come out looking for cheese. So no, I think that the players think, oh, it's another shirt. But it means something to us. It means something to us, and it's about, I've been asking for this club for years to do something to celebrate our history, to celebrate what we've done in the past. So, from a personal point of view, I'm over the moon the club have done something like this, and it's inspiring me, but I don't think it would inspire some of these players.
Well, I would fucking hope so. It does, you know. At the end of the day, I think it seems like the club are pulling out all the stops to try and get a victory here today, you know, by having a nod back to that. And also, let's not forget, you know, today there will be a minute's applause for Martin Shivers as well. And again, hopefully the team can go on and get the victory for him, because they didn't honour him Wednesday night the way, you know, us fans would have liked. So hopefully today is the day we can honour him in the correct way. Let's take a few comments, welcome some people in, and we've got plenty to discuss today. We've got Brandon, time for the best pre-game show around, here to cheer us up before the Spurs let us down. To be honest with you, Brandon, not sure it's going to be much of a cheer fest. At the end of the day, we just ask the questions, and then, you know, these guys answer it without however they feel. Like, we're not going to sit here and, you know, and I certainly don't promote fake positivity or that. You know, what you're going to get here is just realistic thoughts on the current situation and stuff like that. But big up, Brandon. We've also got Drewski in the house. Big up, Drew. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. I commend you lads for still having the energy to deal with this shit show of a club. Do you know what, Drew? Don't get me wrong. It's harder and harder as the years go by. You know, sometimes you think, look, what is the point? You know, if people inside the club don't care, what's the point of me caring or trying to show this passion and this love for the club and stuff like that? But, you know, these owners will be here, or were here after me, and they'll be here, and they'll be gone long before I end up dying. So I'm not going to let them ruin my my love for the club at the end of the day. Big up, though, Drewski. We've got Dermotron says today is the day our season ends, or we get a lifeline with the FA Cup. The FA Cup is our only hope of winning anything, so they better go out there and fight to win. Big up, lads. Thanks for all you do. Come on, Spurs. Big up, Darmo. It is a big day. And look, we just want to see some commitment today out there, some hunger, desire, a bit of passion, a bit of pride in what they're doing as well. That seems to be lacking at this football club, a bit of pride. We've got Shem Tem, afternoon, Dave and Sleepy Jack and panel. Hope all are well today. We'll be listening to you guys today on the watch long, but refuse to watch the game. Had enough. I think there's many out there like you, Shem, but what I would say, go on, stick it on the telly, lads. You can't, like, at the end of the day, you know, this is what we love, right? And it's sitting down watching the mighty Tottenham Hotspur. Let's see what we can do today, Shem. We've also got Rob Spur in the house. Hello, after the game today. Hopefully our season won't end this season. Well, Rob, hopefully you have a great day at the stadium today. I think tickets were cheaper today for the FA Cup game, so hopefully it's a full house, my man, and hopefully we get the win and creates a great atmosphere. Cyprus Spurs says, hello, everybody. Hope you're keeping well. We've also got Beyond 72. Good to see you back around. He says, scalpers are celebrating our double on eBay, selling the 1901 kit. Another great decision by the club. So basically, and I think Drew said something similar. So basically, what I think you guys are telling me is people have just snapped them up and said bulk buy, and now they're selling them on for a fortune on eBay, trying to extort people. That happens with everything in life when it's limited edition or hard to get on tickets and stuff like that. It's so frustrating. And you know what? Half of them probably aren't even Spurs fans doing that either, and that's the more frustrating thing about it. However, they know our loyalty and our love for the club and know that we'll want to get our hands on it, so they exploit that at the end of it. To be honest with you, probably tinfoil hat stuff here. Would surprise me if some of the Lewis family brought some and then selling them on eBay for a profit and stuff. With how we know our ownerships are and stuff like that.
That would be dirty.
Building. We've got Harmless Potato. Good to see you. I blame Jack and a lack of sleep. Good to see you. We are Spurs. TV says, do people really think marching down the high road and singing about how much they love Kulusevski is adequate? About how much the owners have screwed over for 26 years? Why is the chant not F Enoch and get Enoch out of our club? To be fair, there was a lot of that as well, to be fair. We are Spurs TV. We've got Collison here says, Koi, stay positive. True supporters, only non-supporters turn on the team. I don't think that's true, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, you know, regardless of your opinion on certain players, on what's going on at the football club, everyone still turns up every single game. If that doesn't show loyalty, love for the club and stuff like that, I don't know what does. At the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to support the club or how to vent your frustrations. And, you know, you shouldn't be telling others, you know, that they're not real fans or whatever. You know, if they're not, if that's sort of the frank sort of mentality, to be honest with you. But look, I'm sure there's so many that I've missed here, guys, and I do apologize. I'm a bit rattled. I am running so far behind. So please just bear with me. Welcome, everybody. And look, let's just crack on. And I'll try and bring your comments up as I go along. But look, let's get straight into it, guys. I mean, where am I? Here I am. Martin, we'll
there you
go
go.
first on this one. Tottenham fans were back at Tottenham, back at N17 today. FA Cup action under lights. Be honest. I mean, what's your overall emotion right now ahead of kickoff? Is this excitement about a potential cup run, or anxiety about what this game could mean for the manager and the rest of the season?
Do you know what? Right, people have seen me the last few weeks. I'm a bit of a negative Nelly at the minute, but I think that's been dragged at me. But today, I think it's a change of mind just for this one day. If we don't turn up today and we don't get a result, then it's everything for me, which is back where it was. But for the FA Cup, there is something in our tradition. I'm old enough to remember the good old days, when the FA Cup was like a real big thing. Do you know what I mean? And seeing the little clubs do all their things. So there is a big chunk of nostalgia just feeding my mindset on today. But if you break it down to, do I think we win? No. I think their B team is better than anything we can put out in a minute, because we don't know our A team, but it's so strict with injuries and everything else. So I think, being honest, we've got our work cut out today. But as a nostalgic fan who's 50 plus, who can remember the good old days when our players used to go on top of the pops and sing songs in silly little hats and all that, do you know what I mean? So I'm all for it. But yeah, the FA Cup just does that. But if we go out of it today, I won't be interested for the rest of the season in it. It's only means something to you when you're in it. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, 100%. And look, just a follow-up question. I mean, does the FA Cup feel like a welcome distraction, or does it actually add pressure given how fragile the mood around the club is right now?
Well, that's how I'm taking it. As I say, today I can park everything else away for me. But, the players and the coaching staff, they're not going to forget what the fans think and all that. So I hope they can. But does it mean anything to a South American or... it ain't. We ain't got no one there in now to just go, look, like with the Arsenal game, there's no one in there to tell you what it means. So, listen, I'm going to stay positive on for today, and I hope the players do get it and they realise that the rest of our season is shot. If they want some sort of success, what they experienced in May, then they've got to jump on board this ship and give it their all.
100%. Do you know what? I sort of agree with you. With the current squad we have, not a lot of them are sort of, die-hard Tottenham and stuff. Do they really understand what the FA Cup really means to a lot of fans, a lot of Tottenham fans out there? I'd argue I don't think so, which is a bit of a shame, because I think if they put their mindset in, their own FA Cup in their own countries and stuff like that, they should probably find it easier to understand. But at the same time, there's a lack of, you would say, ex-pros and stuff that have been around, been there and done it, to really sort of share the experiences, share what it means from a fan's point of view and stuff, and which is an absolute killer. Because I was saying yesterday, it's even with the likes of Wilson Odegaard, like, he's very raw, and all it really needs is an ex-pro that's in and around that can pull him aside and just give him nuggets of information. Like, you go and listen to the likes of Robbie Keane, Defoe and stuff like that. They had ex-pros in and around Tottenham that they could rely on, that they get, or even older pros in and around the squad that they could rely on, get nuggets of information, and it's really served their career well and really helped them kick on. And we do really lack a lot of that around Tottenham Hotspur. I definitely agree with that. Dermot, on to you, my man. I mean, look, today we are back in FA Cup action. Realistically, how far do you think Tottenham can go in this competition? Is this a genuine opportunity to win silverware, or are fans just desperate for anything to cling on to in the second half of this season?
I'm just desperate to cling on to anything in this second half of the season. I mean, the way we have been playing, if I'm using my head, we won't go past the third round today. But I don't go by my head. I go by my heart. I go by my passion for the club. And of course, we can go all the way to Wembley and win the damn thing. And I want us to. But you have to be a realist about it. You have to be realistic about it. We've only, 2 wins out of our last 12, 7 wins out of our last 23 games. A Villa team that's on form in third in the league, rarely playing well. We haven't got a hope in hell. But this is the FA Cup, isn't it? Anything can happen. Look at Macclesfield, Crystal Palace today going out to Macclesfield.
Jesus.
Who gave them a chance? No one. So look, the cup's the cup. You always hope that we can go and win the FA Cup. We've won it 8 times. we should have won it 9 times over the years, but we haven't. But this is probably our year. And I said at the start of the season, I have a gut feeling this is our year to win the FA Cup. But you have to be honest about it, and you have to be sensible about it. Villa should roll us over today. I hope they don't. And I hate saying it, and I hate feeling like this, but I just think they will. But you never know. The FA Cup does throw up an odd surprise now and again.
To be honest with you, I think we're sort of in a similar situation where we were last year now, where you've got to prioritise one over the other now. And do you think Thomas Frank will prioritise the FA Cup? Because he has never prioritised the cup at Brentford. They almost went out at the first round nearly every single time. He clearly didn't prioritise the League Cup earlier on in the season. Do you think Frank will prioritise this today? Because I'd argue, I think he should.
He should, and he said he is, but Thomas Frank says he's going to do a lot of things and never does it.
He says we're going to play on the front foot attacking football. I'm still waiting.
I'm still waiting. I don't know when it's coming. Apparently that I mean, to answer your question, no, Dave, I don't think he will. I think he'll just treat it as another game. And then I think if he loses today, I think he has to go then. There's nothing keeping him in this club. We're not going to get into Europe. We can't win any domestic cups. We're not going to win the Champions League. Not a hell's chance. We'd be lucky to get into the playoffs the way we're going. So he has to go. But I don't think he will. I think Ange last season did it right. I think he realised we weren't going to win anything in the league in January. Right, let's prioritise the Europa League. Let's put everything into that. But, do you know, Thomas Frank's not that type of manager, is he? And I think to his own detriment, to his own faults and to his own failures, I think he's just going to see this as another game. And then when we do lose, I think then the board then have to sack him, because I think the noise will be too loud and too big for them to ignore where we are in the league. And to be honest with you, Dave, you've said this is not a bad squad. And do you know, if you do look at individual players, there's some very good players within the squad. They need to be organised. But the players don't trust the manager, and I don't think the manager trusts the players.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest problem.
And look, I would argue, I also think today, if we end up going out of the FA Cup, people think it's toxic now. Wait until we go out of the Cups. Just from experience, any manager since I've started this YouTube game, once we've gone out of the Cups, they get absolutely pounced on, hounded on. Fans can't take going out of the Cups. So it'd be interesting to see the sort of fallout after. But look, what I would say is I probably wouldn't expect Thomas Frank to be sacked. I've said this time and time again this season that, it looks like the Lewis family are not going to invest sort of this January, and that they are sort of just trying to, they've audited Daniel Levy's accounts because they want to try and get him to sell his shares to them on the cheap, and then they're going to sell the club and take their retirement fund out of it. So I wouldn't even expect much of a way of relief this January in terms of signings. Like, you already seen the ambition of our signing yesterday that we made, the young Brazilian kid. Now, look, like I said, I would urge every fan to give the young kid a chance. It's not his fault he's been brought into this environment and stuff, but it shows the level of ambition, and it does show that maybe they're not ready to heavily invest, and I would argue if they were, they would have Savinho lined up as soon as Semenyo made his move to Man City. But Stevie, Aston Villa knocked Spurs out of this competition last season, and they do arrive as genuine title contenders under Unai Emery. Does that add fuel to the fire today, or does it just underline how big the gap currently feels between these two sides? Because you would like to think this squad would be motivated to get revenge.
You would think, and the interesting thing is that if these players had an ounce of hair on their balls, they would be looking at this as an opportunity to knock out a team like Aston Villa, right? Because again, this is Tottenham Hotspur. We are a team that is synonymous with the FA Cup. When you go down the line, when you go through the annals of history, and you see some of the big wins that this team was able to rack up en route to an FA Cup title win. You would probably assume that this would be the tournament where they would exact that type of revenge. Obviously, the gap is absolutely massive between these two teams. When you talk about ambition, when it comes to ownership, different ownership groups, and you talk about the talent gap between the two teams, most probably would just assume that even if we went to, full bore and we took off the handbrake and we just went at them. There's going to be moments in this match where you would probably think that Aston Villa are going to get back into this match and then turn the tables and and start battering us. So from that standpoint, this is going to be that type of match where it's what I like to call a gut check, right? Because again, if these guys are legit pros, they understand exactly what happened last year, and they understood that even in a situation where it was exactly where we find ourselves right now, where we have guys out because of AFCON, we have injuries, we're not playing at full strength. But that being said, we still have enough talent where we can actually take it to them. And it's not just a matter of the first 20 minutes, the first 40 minutes. It's like, can we actually, as an individual group, play a full 90, the best full 90 that we've played this year in order to essentially save the season? You would like to think that these guys are professional enough to realize it. And that's the question for me. It's like, are these guys pretenders, or are these guys legit? These are the type of matches where you actually find out exactly what your club is all about.
Yeah, no, 100%. And look, you'd hope that these players will sort of eventually get sick of losing, hearing the frustrations from fans, media, and stuff like that, galvanize themselves in the dressing room, and actually come out and put in a fucking committed performance for one and do everything they can to go and win a game. Drew says the real worry is that Villa put out a weakened team, and because they're a better club, they'll still play better football than us, and that's a real fear for me. Look, it was the same with Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. Earlier on in the season, Drewski, I think they made 8 or 9 changes that then they still ended up beating us and, knocking us out of the cup. We sort of missed these opportunities. But to be honest with you, we're our own worst downfall. Like, we can sit here and moan about being drawn in a Premier League team, first round and stuff. We had hard work at Tamworth last year. Under Conte, didn't we go out to Middlesbrough or something like that? We have had easier draws and we've just made them hard work. So it doesn't really matter what the draw is at this point. I'm actually at the point now where I'd rather try and take out some of the Premier League teams in the early rounds, and sort of kick on from there rather than just be given the easy teams now, because no matter the fixture, no matter what we're drawn against, we make it look so difficult. And the problem we have coming into these games is everyone wants to upset Tottenham. Absolutely everybody. Everyone wants to pile on our misery. And to be honest with you, we don't have the manager or the nous to get us out of it or to rise above this occasion, or that's even really ever been in this sort of environment. We don't have the playing squad right now either, or the mentality around the football club to sort of drag us out of it. And we certainly lack the ambition from the owners to really sort of try and help drag us out of it in terms of what they can do with transfers and stuff like that. So it's going to be a long, difficult afternoon, Drewski. Just hopefully we can come out the right side, because we do have a 7-day break between now and West Ham next week. To be honest with you, it'd just be nice to sit here for 7 days and talk about transfers and a bit of bliss rather than, Tottenham in turmoil like we always are. We've got Paddy Hearn. Afternoon, gents. Hope you're all well. Can't see anything other than a loss tonight. And hopefully the Danish Sean Dyche is sacked. Do you know what? This is another thing that I think is very, very sad to see, because when I first started YouTube, I used to turn up before games and everyone used to have that excitement about them. And everyone used to be, excited. And I wonder, is that because we did have Kane and Son and they believed we had players that could go and win us any game, no matter the form and stuff like that. But now it just seems like we're all being forced to turn up, or like we're turning up, but we don't really want to be here. The excitement is being drained. And look, I think that's partly down to the football as well. It's not really inspiring. It doesn't really get people out their seats. It doesn't really make people want to rock up to the stadium. So there's a lot going on right now, which is, it's sad to see, how unenthusiastic people are heading into games. And like I said, I do not blame them whatsoever. Even I struggle sort of to turn up pre-games with that excitement and that now as well. But look, in terms of that Danish Sean Dyche being sacked, Thomas Plank, Thomas Frank, Thomas Wank, I don't care what you want to call the frizzy-haired moron. To be honest with you, I'm not sure that's going to be the case. Paddy Harnett, they sent out this message that they're going to sit there and back the guy. But when all these guys that are up there, we're working with billions of pounds, they're playing 5D chess. They think we're morons. They think they can send out a message and that we can't see what's going on. They came out when they first came in here. We want to take this club back to its glory days. We're going to do everything we can. They initially put in money. But when it actually comes to the time where the transfer window is open to actually put your money where your mouth is, put your ambition where your mouth is, we're still sitting here twiddling our thumbs and we're celebrating a 19-year-old left back from Brazil, and we've signed him off his first senior season. So I think that's what we're going to see more of this, and I think they're just going to get it until the end of the season, and they're going to look to sell and move on and take their retirement fund, Paddy. I think they tried to lie to everybody, with this ambition talk and stuff like that. At the end of the day as well, though, you do have to sort of give them, what's the old expression, enough rope to hang themselves. You've got to give them this January and see what they can do. But I have no doubt there will be groups popping up left, right, and centre to start putting pressure back on these guys. It'll be very interesting to see how many people get behind it this time compared to maybe previous seasons and stuff like that, Paddy. Yes, we'll go back to you, Martin. This feels like a huge afternoon, not just because of the opposition, but because Thomas Frank is under serious pressure. With fan frustration boiling over, rumours of board-level concern, and talk of an emergency meeting at board level after the Bournemouth game. Is today win or sack for Thomas Frank?
I think for us, yeah. And as I say, I had a lot more time for him than you did at the beginning of the season, but you know, that's just quickly burnt away. And I fear for where we're heading. So we all say it and we say the club don't get it, the club don't care, they don't do this, they don't do that. Well, if these emergency meetings, and they are worried, are true, then, you know, his job must be in jeopardy. Do I think it's going to happen? I really don't. I think they're like us when we come up with an answer, well, what we're going to do to the end of the season. I don't think there is a right answer. I think if we jump now and get a mediocre manager, you're going to miss the good chances of a manager in the summer. So I think they've read that. But, you know, if they are, if Frank's excuse to why he's been playing like this, it's shit, it's this, the fans are on us, because his first answer will be, I haven't got the resources. So if that is his defence, and they're having a go at him, and then he's throwing it back at them and going, well, this is what I'm working with. I told you it was crap. And then they go out. What we on the 10th today? We bought one 19-year-old kid who's in his first season, who's played 26 games. He's been injured for half of them. Then Frank can just turn around and go, well, how can you sack me on about this? I told you I ain't got the players. You go and get me this. I've got 50 kids sitting in the academy trying to get them loan deals, and then you bring me this. So he's got something to answer them with. But in the bigger picture, how long are we going to let it go? Right? He's got now, let's say, you know, as dream world, he wins today. I don't think it can be convincingly, but we can win. Then he's got a week to prepare for West Ham. Now, you know, I come from a West Ham area, so for me, it's a big game.
Yeah, it's a big game.
Right? It's a big game in Martin's head, right, with Martin's friends. Now, if he gets that wrong, right, and why their manager they're in a worse state than us, right? Out of all the teams that have got it going bad, you look at Wolves, they know they're going down, but their fans are singing from there with them. They're enjoying it. Us, we ain't. And we are West Ham next year if this does not stop. Make no bones about it. We are in dire straits and we're heading towards it. And last year we all said last season was a blip. Well, this season's showing you it ain't a blip. There's something going wrong. And someone has to stop this rot. I don't care if it's Frank or Wank. All right? Someone has to get in there. And the owners are turning down interest to buy the club. They're saying they're going to put their money where their mouth is. They tried, like this kid from Brazil. Apparently, the club wanted 60 million. That's what they value him at. And then there's these negotiations. We started at 8 million, right? And it's just pathetic. Go out there and go, right, here you go. Like, when I would make it sound easy, but they're telling us there's 150 million. Then there's 35 from Brennan Johnson. You're coming up to nearly 200 million. And you're trying to haggle over 4 or 5 million. If this kid is your answer, you're still trying to haggle pennies to them. It's pennies. Mm-hmm. And they're not standing to their end of the bargain. And why they're not doing that, it gives Frank the reason to come in and go, I've asked you for players. Yeah. You ain't got. So whether we think he's right or wrong and whether we can do it is immaterial. But the argument between them is, I need players. I've got you this. Well, what the fuck is that? You know, so I just don't think they've got the balls to do it, and I don't know where they can take us either. So it's all a shit show.
I agree. I certainly don't think the board have the balls to do it. At the end of the day, yes, they've been in around the club a long time, but they're inexperienced at making big calls and big decisions like this that, you know, can either have a consequence one way or another. And I think they're very hesitant to sort of pull the trigger on Thomas Frank, to be honest with you. And I think that's why it's going on this long, and that's why I think it's here to continue. But I would argue, you know, like I tried to argue in the summer, You know, that I think we need to bring in a manager that has experience at manage a big club like this, that has experience dealing with the scrutiny that comes from fans, the press, and stuff like that. You look at Thomas Frank and Ange Postecoglou. None of them had that experience, you know, at a club at this sort of level, and, you know, with the amount of scrutiny and the attention that comes to it. They've never had all of their tactics, their decision-making processes and stuff like that scrutinized to this intensity and stuff like that before. And also, when you look at a lot of the players we've brought in, young, Thomas Frank was at Brentford with no fucking academy. They don't have an academy there. He's not used to working with young kids. You know, you look at Ange Postecoglou, the only time he was used to working with young kids was out in Australia. You know, so if this is the transfer model you're going to employ, bring in a guy that has experience working with these youngsters, because that's what they need. You know, right now you're getting these managers, putting them out there. But with these youngsters, they need to be coached during the game. They need messages being put to them through the game. They need to be, you know, after the game, during the week, pulled aside. This is what you need to work on, and giving nuggets of information. That's how you're going to get the best out of this young squad. But we keep missing the boat. We keep trying to paper over the cracks. We're buying cheap and buying young, and bringing in guys that we think, you know, that have done good elsewhere or decent elsewhere, that are not coming into this club on massive money the way Jose's and Conte's were and stuff like that. But it's just an absolute complete fucking mismatch, and it drives me mad. You know, when we had all that talented under-21 squad coming through that won the under-17 cup, under-18 cup, under-21 league as well, you know, and stuff like that. That was the time to bring in a manager to start feeding some of these through, so we're not sitting here every season, you know, going into Europe. Oh, well, we've got to register fucking 9-10 goalkeepers because we don't have homegrown players that we can register, outfield and stuff like that. There's no proper planning at the top, and I'm absolutely fucking up to here with it. And I don't think they have the cojones to sack Thomas Frank either, to be honest with you. Look, Stevie, over to you. I mean, Spurs do go out the FA Cup this afternoon. Is that the final straw, you know, for Thomas Frank, you know, with a large section of the fan base? And do you think that pressure and them voices might make the board act? I'll be back in 1 second. I'll knock at the door.
Yeah, that's a very good question. You know, for me, 100%, right? Because this is truly the last stand. I think everybody recognizes that we're not going to win the Champions League, and we're not going to kick up the table to put ourselves in a European position. So winning the FA Cup actually does the exact same thing as winning the Europa League. Now, granted, it's only a Europa League berth, but that being said, it's the only avenue that this club realistically has an opportunity to claim a European spot. Okay, fine. So from that standpoint, everything that would suggest that Thomas Frank actually wants to win this, I don't think that, you know, necessarily he's that big of a dummy where he doesn't necessarily recognize it. But that being said, you know, to what Martin eloquently just said, you know, this ownership group, it looks like they have decided not to back him. And I think a large part of this has a lot to do with the results at hand. Winning only 2 matches in 10, 2 on the 10, right? So the results haven't necessarily gotten their way. You see the turmoil that's in the clubhouse, and you see the infighting between players, and now all of a sudden everybody wants to leave, right? So from that standpoint, the last thing that this ownership group wants to do is back him. And so from that standpoint, he's probably going to have to make do with what he has, and waiting for Solanke and Kulusevski to get back, so it gives him a little bit more breathing room. That being said, if he loses today, it puts far more pressure on his shoulders, knowing that we have West Ham and Burnley coming up ahead. And, you know, from that standpoint, I mean, is there going to be any credibility? Is there going to be any type of, reassurance that we're not going to, you know, drop points to West Ham at home, where we actually have not had as bad as West Ham is, our home form is so terrible that we seem to press in those moments. Like, for whatever reason, when we're away from home, the big lights don't seem to affect us, where you would probably assume we're probably going to take 3 points against Burnley, but against a team that's so dreadful as West Ham, there's a good possibility that we're just going to drop all 3, or do something midway through where we end up dropping 2 points and we end up with only 1, and then getting our asses kicked against Dortmund a couple days later. And if that, and that's the thing, it's like, for me, it doesn't take Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Machine to figure out what's going on with Tottenham Hotspur, right? We have a large enough sample size to understand that, for whatever reason, what worked in the first 3, 4, 5 games of the season, for whatever reason, Thomas Frank, decided to pump the brakes and went in a different direction. And now it's to a point where it seems like it's untenable. And if he figures out a way to screw this up today against an Aston Villa team that really kind of is there for the taking, in the larger picture, really, as good as Villa has been, they're really there for the taking. And if this team can figure out a way to put together a full 90 to kind of re-energize the fan base and re-energize the changing room, that would go a long way. But if he figures out a way to screw this one up, I don't understand how the board is going to look at this and say, okay, we're going to back him and we're going to set ourselves up for the second half. That emergency session is going to turn into 2, and then all of a sudden they're going to start asking themselves, well, okay, is there a caretaker out there that's willing to come in for the last 4 months, and then we're going to go out again and find a new manager? Because if you're a big club, that's exactly what you do. Martin, you understand this. Derma, you understand this. Dave, you understand this as well too. You see what Manchester United just did, and when you look at Manchester United's spot in the table, you're like, well, hang on. You're actually in a position where you can grab a European spot. But it's like, no. Our manager does not reflect this club at all. Gone, out the door. It doesn't matter. We have standards here. Chelsea did the exact same thing, and for as toxic as United is, they still act like a big club. They will still make those hard decisions, even when they feel like their backs are against the wall. Yet Tottenham Hotspurs continue to do the exact same things. Right? What's the definition of insanity? Right? Doing the exact same things over and over again and expecting a different result, but yet the results are still the same. So if we are a big club, let's act like it, and let's not put ourselves in a position where we're actually talking about a relegation scrap. Because the hard truth is, it has been a slow burn since Mauricio Pochettino left this club. Yeah. And we have cycled through good managers and mediocre managers, and we're not backing them. We're not taking the steps that are needed to kick up the table. And the painful truth is, if we continue to do these exact same things, what's going to end up happening is the club is going to get relegated.
Can I just ask a question? Just throwing it. We talk about a big club and standards and that. But do you think they look at it through the lens of, we're a global brand, we're a global this, we're a global that, we're being so successful off the pitch with all the money revenue streams and this, that, and the other, that they're happy to let that football side slide, because you can't tell them they're not doing their job properly when they look at their bank accounts and all the money we're making. They go, we're a very big club. Is the football that the stepsister to the brand? Do you know what I mean? Although the brand is built on the football.
100% it is. If you go back and research as far back as Daniel Levy and Joe Lewis, with some of the clubs they owned before Tottenham, like I think they had owned Rangers or something like that. I think they also had Slavia Prague and stuff like that. Daniel Levy went to Joe Lewis and persuaded him to invest in football clubs, because he could see the upward trend that football was going in, the money that could be made. So it was an investment to them all along. It was never about ambition. That's why they bought Tottenham Hotspur, so that they could, they knew that, eventually by buying up around the area, that they could get the planning permission to build a massive stadium, build up around exactly, all the real estate money, the hotel, the training complex, everything else. And when you look at the structures that they have, everything is under different umbrellas, under different companies under ENIC and stuff. And there's a lot of money being moved from different accounts to fund other things and then funneled back and stuff like that. So there was no ambition from the first place when they got into football in the first place. It was never about wanting to be, the bigwigs. Like, you got all these, Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Saudi Arabia guys coming in. They literally just want to be successful. They want to be able to rock up to board meetings and everything else, slap their dick on the table and go, well, I own a football club. We're winning. What are you guys doing and all it? They almost use it as sort of a pride thing or something to gloat about. Whereas ENIC, it was only ever about investment and making money out of the game.
Yeah, it's like what's your definition of winning? Is it trophy haul or is it club valuation? Because as of right now, if they sell today, they're walking away with a cool $5 billion. So who's actually winning? You know what I mean? Is it that's the question you have to ask. What's your definition of winning? Because for Enoch, it's about at the end line when they do eventually sell and they walk away with generational money that's going to keep their grandkids in gold-plated diapers, for the next generations. Yeah, 100%. That's their definition of winning.
Yeah. Dharma, I'll pose a question to you. I think I've heard you say something along the similar lines as Paul V here says. We could have Pep as manager, nothing would change. So are you sort of aligned along with that? Nothing will change unless things change at ownership level.
Nothing would change. Nothing would change until Enoch had gone. But Enoch, look, Enoch will go. The club are up for sale. I don't care what anyone says. Tottenham are up for sale. They're just not. It's up for sale in all but name. And there will be no investment this January. We won't go out the best players. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. Enoch are not going to back this manager. No way, shape or form. And for them, this is a dream window for them because they don't have to spend any money. And again, I feel sorry for this 19-year-old kid who's been brought in.
Yeah.
Because, he feels like you're leading a lamb to the slaughter. I would have left him in Brazil, loan him back to his club, to Santos, and leave him there. What's he going to change? Absolutely nothing. And as soon as Enoch go, the better. But then they're not going to go unless they get the valuation they want for the football club. And, we are a big club. We are a big name. We do have the history behind us. But I'm sorry, as this present time, Tottenham Hotspur is a club that's in freefall. Me and Martin have seen a lot over our years. I don't mean to say everyone's over, but me and Martin have seen a bit more than you.
You don't need to include me.
No, I know, but now me and Martin we've seen the really good times, the golden years at Tottenham when Birkinshaw was in charge, and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and some of the 90s were bad. But
when the FA Cup was ours.
Yeah, the FA Cup was ours. That's when the club and the fans were connected. We're not a football club anymore. We're just a business. We should be called Tottenham Hotspur PLC instead of the Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And that makes me angry. That makes me so angry because we are a football club at the end of the day. That is our right. That is what we're on this planet to do as a thing, to play football. Daniel Levy, for all his bad management, I don't think he was truly the problem. We're now seeing Enoch were the problem. And the sooner they're out of our football club, the better. I wish Alan Sugar would come back and buy us. Martin knows. No, Alan Sugar was a bit of a divisive figure, but at least he cared about the football club. At least he put his money where his mouth was. Not always right. One year, Dave, sorry, I finish on this. In 95, we started the season with a 12-point deduction, banned from the FA Cup, and I think £150,000 fine because of what the Ivan Scholar ownership did. Now, Mo's owned it. Enoch would have said, okay, fine, we'll accept that. Not Alan Sugar. He fought them all the way in every court he can get them in. This is not my fault. We gave you the information. Now we gave you the information. And now you're tiring us with it? No, I'm sorry. I'm going to fight you. And he did win. He got all our points back, and we got to a semi-final that year under Jerry Francis. He may not have been the best owner in the world, but he cared about our football club. And we hounded him out the club because we thought Enoch were the best thing to come. Enoch, when they first came in, says, our aim is to invest in this football club and get to the Champions League. Would have done what they said they were going to do. They got us to the Champions League. That was the height of their ambitions. They're not going to go any higher. So the sooner they're out, the better. I do understand.
I do understand what you're saying about, Alan Sugar and that being forced to sell the club and, Enoch. But the other person that was linked with the club at the time was Robert Maxwell. And thank God him and his family.
No, Robert Maxwell. That was back in the late 80s, early 90s. Thank God he didn't get it. I agree with you, Dave. But if you're looking at Alan Sugar and Enoch, who would you prefer as owner?
Oh,
if you look at the two. If you look at the
Yeah,
team,
but
who would you prefer?
What I will say is when it comes to the Lewis family, some would make the argument. I'll be interested to see if there's anybody on the panel or out there that says maybe it's too soon to jump on their back, that maybe you do have to give them, the January transfer window next summer to see what to judge them fairly. But what I will say is, looking at what the first signing we brought in this January, are they doing anything different to what they done when they first signed, when they first bought this club? When they first bought this club and stuff, my whole lifetime growing up, they were always buying Danny Rose, Lennons, Walkers, Modric's, Bales, all of that, young players from academies, from teams across Europe and stuff, and looking to sort of morph them into one team or sell on for a huge profit. What are we doing differently today than what we done 20 years ago? Nothing. We're doing the exact same processes, and that was my big problem with Daniel Levy and why I wanted him gone. But no, since now he's gone, to Dermot's point, it does look like, Enoch also need to go with him, that nothing has changed. There was that fair narrative that Daniel Levy maybe was operating off you sort of the Enoch sort of mandate and stuff like that. But, the reason why I wanted Daniel Levy to go was because, his time at the club was up. He didn't have any fresh ideas. They didn't know how to start progressing the club by bringing in more experienced players and helping us on the field and push on for success. He just went back to bringing in Archie Grays, Bergvalls, Takais, Yangs, players like that. Nothing has actually changed now from when they first took over the club, despite them building the stadium, putting the training complex in, promising that all the revenue made from the stadium and everything that it generates would be put straight back into the football team so that we can go and compete with the big teams, so that we can offer the wages to keep our players here, attract players, offer the fees and stuff like that. And we're not seeing it. We've been absolutely conned. They're just going back straight down what they've done for the last 20 years. And it's a model that will only take this club so far. And what we're seeing now, when you've got people coming in with a lot more ambition that actually want to go and win trophies, we are sliding further and further down the table, operating under this model. And that's why, I think, me personally, I did say I'd give them a year, but I think if things don't change this January, I think there should be a huge clamour to try and force them to sell up at that point, to be honest with you. Anyone else want to come in on that, or would anyone else make a case that maybe we've got to give them more time before we judge? Maybe we're just a
quick one. I just think the evidence is there of what we've seen. There was a little hoodwink, like everyone in the summer. We bought players ready for now, but we didn't. We bought two, we loaned two, and then the first time they get Levy out, and then the first thing they do is, listen, if you'd have bought him in the last week of January and you've got 2 or 3 other good squad players in, we'd be able to go, okay, we can get on board with this. But the fact that they've handed him out and, bought themselves a few months for the fans to go, all right, we give them a second chance. We know it's Enoch, but we give them a chance. And the first thing you do is buy an unknown Brazilian. It's really hard to sit and see their vision because it's continuing in the same vein.
Yeah. And none of the stuff that Vinay or anyone previous has come out with, all that PR bollocks, none of it matches up with the actions when the transfer windows come about and stuff like that. And that's why fans are starting to show less and less patience. Because I do think in the media, a lot of media people look at Tottenham and go, why are the fans jumping on their back? Look what they've done with the stadium, the training complex and stuff like that. But, if they've actually followed the club the way we have, listened to a lot of the PR bullshit that comes out, the empty promises and stuff like that, they would actually have a better understanding of why we are showing these guys a lot less patience than maybe what has been shown to them in years gone by.
It's interesting, right? Like, I wonder if, Johan Lang is looking around the Premier League and seeing, different big clubs, how they've expanded their loan army and understanding that that is going to fuel the bottom line to their transfer budget, right? So if you go out there and you actually spend a good portion of your resources on young players, right? If you bring in 10 players and 4 of them hit, well, you're going to be able to sell those guys at a massive profit, right? Where you're going to be able to cover your losses of the ones that don't, because you can loan them out and maybe they can put them in the shop window and you might get 1, 2, 3 million for some of these players. Well, all of a sudden that's going to be profit. On the other side of the thing is, I think that this club has become so risk averse that they've had too many failures when bringing in high priced players that didn't pop because for whatever reason, the atmosphere didn't work, whatever the case may be. And so when you take those losses, now all of a sudden you're going to be just a little bit more risk averse when it comes to it. When we bought Xavi, the theory that I had is like, well, he's only 23, 24 years old. And so like there's a good chance that if he does pop 3 or 4 years down the line, they're going to sell him for a profit as well too. And so from that standpoint, there is a strategy when it comes to guys that actually have valuable first team experience. We're not going to bring 28, 29, 30-year-old players in here that actually can help us kick on. We're actually going to be in that 22 to 25 age group, because there's still going to be a massive upside when it comes to their resale. That is the ambition of this club. It's not necessarily we're going to try to kick on with experienced players. We're going to try to develop, because at the end of the rainbow, there's going to be a parachute full of cash. And if it just so happens that we kick up if we kick up the table and we put ourselves in an advantageous position, it's fantastic. That's fantastic. We're going to sell more tickets. We're going to sell more merchandise, and the fans are going to be on our back. But we're still going to stick to this lone army type of structure, because it's at the end of the day, it's going to be advantageous for us.
Mm. And I know you like this comment here from Drew Zill earlier on, and I think it's a fair argument to make. He says, I don't see them selling soon, to be honest. If this Netflix or football thing actually comes to fruition after the current TV deals are up, you're looking at new deals that could 4 times the money clubs get. And I think there is a fair point to that, that I think it is in best interest of all the football clubs not to renew traditionally like you do with your Sky Sports and your BT Sports, and, put everything as an open sort of market out on the table. And that way, then they are going to get bigger money than in terms of TV rights and stuff like that. So do you think, that's the case? They might not sell, that something like this could be coming down the road?
100%.
I think so. I think 100%. So. I think
it'd be in their minds.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's inevitable that it's going to go this way. I mean, Netflix are already doing boxing already. It's only a matter of time for Netflix gets involved in this. I think there'll be a time where the Premier League actually do the rights through the Premier League themselves. They don't do it to Sky. They do all of it themselves, and clubs will end up giving out season tickets for all the games home and away. So you pay, say, 100 or 150 euro a year. You can watch every game. And I think that will come. There will become a time when that will happen. And people like us, Dave, will buy it because we need it for our content. We need it to have to do our channel. So, and Steve as well. So I think it is going down that way. For me, I think football has become a money juggernaut that I'm afraid one day will go bust.
Of course.
And what will happen? Yeah, but what will happen down to all the clubs? And to be fair, I think Tottenham are one of the few clubs that won't be affected as badly as, say, the likes of a Man United or Liverpool or a club like that. I think you can criticize Daniel Levy all you want, but he's financially left us in a far better position than when he found us. And I think that's down to him. I don't think that was down to Enoch. I think it was down to Daniel Levy himself. And I think he should get credit for that. I think he should get credit for the way he's left us in a far better place. Yes, they should be criticized for not buying players. Yes, they should be criticized for not backing managers. Yes, they should be criticized. Only 2 trophies in 25 years, which is horrendous. But if you look on the financial side of it, and if, say, football did go belly up or the bubble did bang, Tottenham would be probably one of the clubs less affected than, say, most of the other.
I do get what you're saying. We say that, but if you look at the amount of loans Tottenham Hotspur have, they'll struggle to repay if they will do. Yeah. And stuff, and that's where this club will be caught.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But
will be caught.
Well, I think so. Sports has been trending towards the streaming anyways, right? 15 years ago, there was a reason why, they wouldn't do it, because of the distribution. We're all regional and they weren't necessarily global. Now, 15 years aside, Netflix is one of the most easily accessible streaming platforms in the world. And when you look at what just happened with the UFC moving to Paramount Plus and the amount of money that they were able to extract out of it, all of a sudden their subscription went absolutely through the goddamn roof. And so if you're looking at this from a financial standpoint, it makes absolute sense that the Premier League would go down this route, because everybody has a Netflix account. And if you wanted to upsell your Premier League package for an extra $50 a month, there's going to be a lot of people, including myself, that would probably do it just because of the accessibility of it. Yeah. And if that means the league is going to be getting $10 billion a year for their streaming rights, what person in their right mind would actually sell their club if they're sitting on a goddamn gold mine, especially with Spurs, as you just said, Dave, because of the loans that they have, because of the stadium. It's been amortized for 30 years, but they're still going to have periods where they're going to have to make payments. And if you're pulling in $1 billion a year just on television rights, you're not going to do anything stupid by selling your club, understanding that you're literally sitting on a pile of cash.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We got this from Mary W. I always backed the team, but had enough. Frank must go, followed by players, regardless of results today. And this is another question I wanted to bring up just to maybe have a fair debate or stuff like that. Is there anyone that would make the case that we should stick with Thomas Frank and stick through this sort of tumultuous period and see if we can come out the other side? Is there anyone on the panel that would make that argument, or anyone in the chat? Please do let us know.
Not me.
I've just seen the tumbleweed go across the screen. Dave has gone back quiet. I get what you're saying. Like, is there anyone? I'd be very surprised if somebody does. That's
the thing. He's going to be forced to stay because of the alternative, not because they have confidence in him turning it around. It's a reverse psychology thing, isn't it? He's there because there's no other option rather than we have faith in him. And they're not putting money his way. So a third into the window, they've not put no money into him. And honestly, 15 million on kids, that should just be happening anyway, regardless of our budgets. So I just, there's no strong links with anyone. There's the papers and the journalists talk about things. We can be with Savinho, this, that, and the other. But that don't mean the clubs are talking and they're really going out and making that bold statement. Here we go, lads. Cop a load of that. Shut up, leave the players alone, unless they're just not helping anyone. So
look, as well, do I think the job is too big for Thomas Frank? Yes, I argue that from the day he got it. Do I think he was the right man for Tottenham Hotspur in terms of the way he sees the game? No, I don't. I made that argument from the very beginning. But where I do feel sorry for Thomas Frank is the board put out a statement saying they were going to back this guy in January, despite the pressure he was under. And we're already a third way through the month. And what backing has he been given? And, that's where I do feel sorry for someone like Thomas Frank, because at the end of the day, do I think he's good enough? No. But is every problem his? No. And I tried to argue that under Ange when everyone was saying injuries were Ange Postecoglou's problem. This was Postecoglou's problem. Every problem that cropped up, everyone put on Postecoglou. It was the same with Conte. It was the same with Jose Mourinho. And when they go, the same problems keep happening. And it will happen when Frank goes. But I'd argue if we got in a manager of a certain caliber like we should have done in the first place, they're better at papering over the cracks than others. For instance, when we sat Conte sitting in fourth, didn't have a perfect squad, but could paper over the cracks because he has the know-how and the nous. Same with Jose Mourinho. With Postecoglou and Frank, they didn't. And that's why we are being exposed so badly right now. They're also the level of manager you bring in, if the club are operating this way, really, really does matter at the end of the day.
Yeah. To add to that, Dave, since they've said that we're going to back them in January, they've now sold a player. And we've lost two in the last week, even if it's for a couple of weeks. We've lost 2 or 3 more players. We're going down and down and down. He's already been moaning the squad ain't good enough or we ain't got no depth. Now it's been stripped of another 3 or 4 players for the next month, and they're still not coming up with any goods. It's worrying.
The interesting thing is, there was a reason why I backed Ange Postecoglou last season, even when things were absolutely bleak, because he actually had credibility in my eyes because of what his trophy cabinet was saying. And it doesn't, it doesn't matter what league you're in. Winning trophies is one of the hardest things to do because everything has to go right for you and for you to do that, right? And he did it in Australia, Japan, Scotland. He has trophies in the bank, and he took a national team that doesn't win anything. And he got a trophy out of that as well, too. And so in my eyes, I was willing to back him because he has the trophies and the credibility to back it up. And even in the midst of a crappy year last year, we still won a trophy. Mm-hmm. The problem with Thomas Frank is he doesn't have that credibility in the bank for me as well, too. And, it seems to me that when adversity hits, he has no idea what to do. He doesn't necessarily have that contingency plan in place, and that's
Wasn't
the
that what
biggest
he was
issue.
touted to be, though, Stevie?
Yeah, for sure.
He
For
had
sure.
all the answers.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, what's the number one? What is your plan going in? And if it fails, what's your contingency plan? And we have seen time and time again, even in mid games, he just doesn't adjust. Yeah. And so that's what we're having to work on. And for me, that's the most frustrating thing. Yes, the results are frustrating, but it's also how you get from point A to point B. Some of the best managers actually have that built-in contingency. But again, we can blame Thomas Frank all we want, but the reality is it's the people that hired Thomas Frank, the ones that thought it was a good idea to turn our club into Brentford. It's not just Thomas Frank. It's also, he's a symptom. There's an overarching problem with this club. And to fire Thomas Frank without actually removing the people that were responsible for hiring him, we're still going to have the same problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, let's take a couple of comments here from the comment section here, and then let's crack on, because I do want to talk around formation today. I think that's a big talking point, despite the limited amount of personnel available in midfield and in forward areas. What sort of ways Frank going to set up, and then maybe some team news questions for the last 40 50 minutes or so. But let's take some comments here from the comment section. I've already got Mary, so big up Mary. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've got Gadu. He says Jan window is the kind where you have to wait for it to end to see what happens, which I think it's a fair enough statement, to be fair. He says all eggs usually go into planning for the July window, Jan being kind of emergency window. You can't plan big for and only bargain. I think I do understand what you're saying, but I would say it is a window that can help transform the rest of your season. If you go back to when we brought Conte in, we had to wait to the end of the window for Kulusevski and Bentancur. But look at the massive difference they made that season in terms of pushing us on, to qualify for Champions League and stuff. So I do take your point that it is a notoriously hard window. It is sort of a window that you are looking to go in and maybe do emergency fixes that you didn't plan for. But there are options out there if you have the right level of ambition to be able to kick this squad on for the rest of the season.
It's not mission impossible. There is chances there. It ain't. You ain't got this summer coming up. You've got the World Cup. People ain't going to be moving, so it's going to be like a January window at the end of that World Cup to get them in your pre-season. So you've got to do something now if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Big up, Gudu. Absolute fair comment. We Spurs TV says, when do we pick up our financially solid trophy? Yeah, we might get rewarded in a business sense once or twice. You never know. We are Spurs TV, but brilliant comment there. Who else have we got here? We've also got Mr. William Webb says Frankie's not the right fit for Spurs, though he is the right fit for ENIC. I think that's a fair argument to make. He doesn't really cause too much of a stir in the press in terms of outward media. He does with us Spurs fans because of what he says, and he thinks we're Brentford and stuff like that. But, in terms of the outward media and all that, he doesn't really put too much attention on the club in that regard. Then we've got Ange Boss says, nothing is going to change anytime soon. Spurs is a corporate cash cow, and ENIC have been spinning lies for years. All smoke and mirrors, the art of deception, entertainment, and they know the fans are addicts, and we will continue to need our dopamine hit regardless. Absolutely. That's why these owners can come in and do what they want with Newcastle, with clubs. You look at Newcastle under Mike Ashley, he could do what he wants with it. At the end of the day, they know fans need the dopamine hit, and at the end of the day, we're loyal. We turn up every single game, despite the players and the manager wanting to question how loyal we are. We finished 17th last year. We're in 15th this year, and we're still turning up for every single game. Imagine
all over Europe, traveling Europe. Pre-seasons.
Pre-season. You got Spurs fans flying out over pre-season to go and follow this club, yet they question the loyalties and stuff.
And they fly you to Australia at the end of the season. They call us customers, but it's not like a Tesco's customer. You go there, you're in for life. Once that brand's made on you at an early age, you're in. You're in.
They know
that.
You're not going to change your football club. Nobody does.
Just because you don't like ENIC, you're not going to go and support Leighton Orient. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, to your point, if Tesco's put their prices up or you get bad customer service, you go to Morrison's or other supermarkets like that.
Exactly.
With football clubs, you don't do that, and they know that it's a very loyal industry, and they exploit that. That's why tickets are going through the roof. I was speaking to one of the Irish guys the other day, Jack, and He's going over for North London Derby. 130 fucking euro he was charged for his North London Derby ticket. You look at the price of jerseys and everything else.
When me and Taylor went to Palace, we sat in the south stand. We paid £190 each ticket. And that's for a tap, but that's 190.
You know how much I paid for? You know how much I paid for my North London Derby ticket that I'm going over to London for the first time? I've already told you, right? Because they have premium and non-premium tickets, so I figured, why not? I spent 600 American on that ticket.
Sit 10 rows up. 400, about £400.
Yeah.
Well, are you going premium? Does that mean you're going in a box and you get something to eat and all that?
No, it just means that I have the pleasure of sitting 10 rows up off the midway line. That's it.
Yeah, see, I went to the Cardiff Cup against Blackburn, and I just couldn't get a ticket, and it was just one of them. So I paid £400. I went in a box. What a day I had! Right, you went in the ground an hour before. You got the escalator up to your room. You walked in the box. Hello, sir. Would you like champagne, sir? Yeah, I'll have some of that. And then you just where they said we ain't got any drinks in the fridge. We'll get it for you. And then we had that, and then my brother and his mates and that come over to see me. I'm in padded seats, but you're in the crowd. And then they're like, excuse me, sir, come in, your rack of lamb ribs are ready and all this, that. You know, it was great. Half-time food at the end of the game when all the crowds are going out, chicken wings and ribs. It was well worth it. But, yeah, you couldn't do it every week, but it was a treat.
The problem I have with the prices anyway in general, like, you know, there's a big clamour to try and get younger fans involved, the younger generation coming through as Tottenham fans and all. But, what young fan is going to look at what Tottenham's doing on the pitch and get in behind this club? Like, you would have gained a lot of traction from young fans under Pochettino era. They loved the way Spurs were playing, loved some of the players. There's none of that right now. They also love the manager. There's none of that right now, you know. So, but yeah, also the price. You know, you got fathers that can't bring kids to game. I remember my father used to bring me to a game, and he, you know, back at the day, it was sort of, it didn't even need to be a big planned event, you know, because of the costs and stuff like that. It's like, wake up on a Saturday, day, want to go to the game? Yeah, fucking right, I do. Bring me. I got my Spurs jersey on. You know what I mean? Straight down to the game and off you go. Nowadays, you know, you can't bring young kids to the game because of the price of your own ticket, you know, and that's let alone the price of travel that's gone up, the price of food, drink, fucking everything else. Yep. It's just got to levels now where, unfortunately, you can't bring your kids to the game and stuff like that unless you're in a very, very wealthy paid job. And it's sad to see, really. Anyway.
Yeah, for Stevie, it's like I'm going to London, I'm going North London Derby. It's going to be a whole wow experience. The football's a little part of it. But for, as I say, for the week in week fans, they want you to go Wednesday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Saturday. Now, how can you afford 3 season tickets for your kids? The kids want the new kit every year, £100 a pop. Your expenses, you're travelling. Mate, it's the difference. You could go and double the size of your house and get a bigger mortgage if you didn't love Spurs.
Yeah, it's mad.
Isn't it?
It's so true. It's so true. We've got this from Tony Buttigieg. He says, excuse me, guys, but you expect Spurs can get something versus Aston Villa? You don't need to excuse yourself, my man. Look, I always come in and live in hope, right? But realistically, from what I've seen this season, from what I've seen from the playing squad, from the manager, what I've seen in general on the football pitch, do I see us turning up today and doing something different we haven't done in games gone by or so far this season? Unfortunately, I don't. And at the end of the day, the reason why is when you've got the ability to score goals like we had with Kane and Son in years gone by and stuff like that, it gives you hope going into every single game. When we can barely muster a shot on target, let alone fucking even think about scoring a goal, how do you expect to go into any game trying to win games and stuff like that? And that's where I live in hope, but I'm not going to sit here and say we're the mighty Tottenham, we're going to roll over them, we're this, with that. That's gone. We're far from that right now. We've also got Tom THFC. I hope we win today. Then get an easy team next game and go on a run to the final. I mean, look, Tony, that would be absolutely brilliant. I'd love to get to an FA Cup final. It'll be someday out. It'll be an absolutely amazing occasion. Midland Matt says, let's test if Enoch buy him players. Well, I think, they've already had 10 days. They're giving them that Brazilian kid. Let's see what happens over the next 20 days or so. DB, good to see you, sir. He says, they won't go through Netflix. They will go direct, or you buy a premium subscription that gives you every Prem game. Do the math. It's exceptional growth. No, you're absolutely spot on. And that probably will be where you get your Netflix package. And then I think Stevie did say this, you pay extra money then and you get available, to the likes of your your Prem games and stuff, like to think that they're going to give you the boxing free like they did with the AJ and Jake Paul stuff, that's not going to happen. You will end up being charged extra premiums and stuff like that for sure. For instance, I use Now TV as an example. If anyone knows what Now TV is, you buy subscriptions to Now TV, but they sell the packages different. They sell you an entertainment package, sports package, stuff like that. And that's the way Netflix and all are going to go. The way
just with that, Dave, if the clubs do it independently, someone like Tottenham, Man United, Liverpool, they're going to be fine. But the likes of the Brentfords and the smaller clubs that don't have that revenue, they're not going to go for that because they're going to want, let's all share the package, because they're going to get a much bigger bunch of the pie than they would be if we all went individual.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Absolutely spot on. Got this from Rooty 2. Frank has never run a Europe campaign, has never won a cup. Usually you hire someone with the right experience for the job. And Rooty 2, I tried to hire this when we first signed him. The common narrative was he will get on the training pitch, he will work with players. And the first thing I said, what time do we think he's going to get on the training pitch? Because we're in Europe. And when you look at all these documentaries, that are out there around clubs and they travel across Europe, and even the Newcastle one on Amazon, you get about 1 day on the training pitch. The rest is about recovery, travel. So that it was a fallacious and a false idea from the very beginning. It's something I tried to highlight from the very beginning. What he done at Brentford and working with them players, he is not going to get that opportunity at Tottenham because we have Europe. And I'm sorry, but I don't want to be a club that comes out of Europe so that this fraud can do what he done at Brentford. I'm not fucking having it. I'm not lowering the standards of this club for this frizzy-haired moron. But look, I agree with you. Usually you home someone with the right experience from the job. And look, you would have been watching around the time when I aired my opinions, and you sort of know that I flagged up a lot of these things at the very beginning. I was just, to be honest with you, ridiculed, abused, and everything else. No one wanted to hear it. We've got King Hoddle. He says, recycle, cross. Football is dying. Absolutely spot on. I was looking at from AFCON yesterday. That JJ Okocha in on Channel 4 doing some of the analysis and stuff like that. You don't have Mavericks like him, Ronaldinho, R9, players like that. What Mavericks do you have coming through now? Rivaldo's, Roberto. None of them players coming through now. But that's all because it's coached out of them at youth level. All the stats that have come into the game, everything's gone safe. Everything's about recycling, retaining, stuff like that. It's gone absolutely boring. So far to the point where they've had to bring in VAR and all this technology to try and make the game more exciting, more controversial, to try and add more goals to it. Whereas if they actually just looked into how the academies and the players are being coached compared to maybe years ago where there was more freedom for them to express themselves in possession and stuff like that, then maybe the product would be entertaining enough where they didn't have to bring in VAR and make the referees center of attention on all this fucking bollocks, King Hoddle. We've got this from Neil Shafton, says 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and Tottenham promises to back the team. Failing to actually do it, rinse and repeat. Big up, Neil. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well in America. Tim Wukong says, not bothered with Frank at all. Waste of time. We've got Kaz in the house. Excuse my French, but what the effing dopamine is anyone getting this season? I do get what you're saying, but I think the general point was they know we're going to turn up every single game to watch this club because we love this club and we want our.
You go for your dopamine, but you don't. All you just get is dope. Do you know what I mean?
Fair. And then we've got Tyler 600 to watch this shit. Have you lost your mind, Tyler? People, that it just goes to show, to back up the point. That's why everything goes up. That's why they continue to charge.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and this isn't a dig at Stevie, but you do have people that would pay extortionate money to get over for the love of the fucking football club, to get inside that stadium, to see what it's all about. And they exploit that. And it's sad, really.
Well, and the interesting thing is I didn't have an opportunity to watch this club at White Hart Lane. It was one of the things that for whatever reason, I just couldn't do it. And it sucks that I couldn't get to experience that type of atmosphere. But this is my first opportunity to go over. And the prices are what they are. I have zero control over how much I'm going to pay. So it was like, am I going, if I'm going to go on this experience and see it for the first time and the experience is going to be fantastic, then as far as I'm concerned, it's worth it. But like, let's not for 1 minute think that I don't know that I was absolutely taken for. Like, I understand it. But it's my first opportunity to see my club.
Yeah,
mate. Listen, just enjoy it. It's for you. I live in Spain. It's a couple of hour flight, but for you, it's a once in a lifetime, maybe 2 in a lifetime. Do you know what I mean? So pay your money, enjoy it, and hopefully we get a win for you.
Yeah. I mean, next year when I come back, am I gonna sit 10 rows up off the midway line? Probably not. I'll probably
No.
try to get into the south stand or the north stand or whatever the case may be. But that being said, for my first time, I just wanted to actually have the experience. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and we've got this from Ribs. He says, well, we've got to keep the ticket prices up. How else can we afford to build a giant, what's that word? Trebuchet to launch Frank back to Denmark. Big up, Ribsy. Good to see you. Hopefully you and the young lad are keeping well. And despite what's going on around Tottenham, hopefully you're both dressed out in all your Spurs gear and absolutely pumped to go. And by the way, as well, I hope everything's all right family-wise with the missus and everything else, Ribsy. Good to see you in the building. And DB, he's not a new member. He's just a returning member. Big up, DB. This time around, though, I would like to see you join us on some fan shows and come on and air your opinion and stuff, because at the end of the day, sometimes you do disagree with what me and Jack sort of have to say, and I do like that. So, please come on and have your say at some point. That'd be absolutely brilliant. But look, guys, let's keep it moving, because I do want to start getting into sort of team stuff right now. Which I did enjoy that conversation, by the way. It was absolutely cracking. So thank you very much, guys. But despite the injuries, do you want to see Frank go strong and put out the most sort of competitive 11 possible, or rotate like he did in the Carabao Cup, which many fans actually supported? And we'll go to you on this one, Dermot. You've been very quiet for a while, Dermot. Everything all right?
Yeah, everything's fine. I'm just letting everyone else have their say. And
he's drained, isn't he? He's running on empty.
I am running on empty. I have to go. Look, just very quickly, I'm very glad that me and Dave do follow Celtic as well, which is our other love. And they've been through the mill. So me and Dave are both drained both teams we follow.
Well, O'Neill's back.
Yeah, Neil's back, and we're winning today. Why they didn't keep him, Dave? I do not know.
The boys from Aberdeen.
I expect Thomas Frank to go strong today. He has to go strong. He has to go. He has to go with his strongest 11. And for me, I think he has to go play Palhinha as a 6 and play Archie Gray as an 8, and then put Xavi as a 10. He has to do that. If we end up playing too defensive at home, then Villa are going to murder us. So I'd rather us go out on our shield, go out giving it a go. If we lose and we've given it a real go, then I'm upset we lost, but I can't be angry at the team for trying. Yeah. If we go out not giving it our all, and he's picked a side that he's resting players for the next game in 7 days' time, well, then I'm done. Because what's the point of resting players? We've got a whole week to build up for West Ham. And do you know what, Dave? The thing is, I think he's thinking West Ham's the bigger game than the game today.
That's my concern.
And that is going to be Thomas Frank's thought in his head. Which is bigger, today or West Ham next weekend? And I think, sadly, it's going to be West Ham next weekend. So I don't want rotation. Guaranteed there'll be a rotation in this team today. But for me, I would start my strongest 11 and take it from there.
Fair. And to you, Marin, is rotation a must today, or does it send the wrong message when belief around the club is sort of fragile already?
Have we got players to rotate? That's my concern.
Point, yeah.
You do across the back. Going to struggle to put a team out.
Yeah.
But there's two sides to me with this. I think it, for confidence, for the players, for the fans, something to just have a bite onto, even if it's for a couple of weeks in the next round. I think he has to go for it. West Ham's next week. It's a week away. Yeah. We don't know what's going to happen. Then we might have a new player in. We might, it's a week away. It's a long time in the Tottenham Hotspur football world. So today he has to. But I think he's got to do something different today. We're very predictable. We know what's going to happen. You're going to have Jed Spence on the left. He's going to cut in. So, right, we put him there. We've got no Kudus, so they ain't got to worry about doubling up over there. I think we're very, very easy to retain for an Aston Villa side to go, look, just, we can easily work these out and we'll just pick them off. So I think he has to come out of the box. He has to play his strongest players that he can. But, at the same time, I want him to put a couple of the homegrown Tottenham players in. But then you can't say that if you're saying you've got to do your strong. So it's a conflict. But for him, I just think he ain't got to worry about sentiment like what we do. We'd like to see them players. He has to worry about going to win that game. And he has to put his strongest team out he can. He has to give them the confidence and the belief that they can go out and have this team and we can go on a cup run. Even if he's lying to them, just tell them it and just get them going for 90 minutes, please. Just, you know, not 10 minutes at the beginning and 10 minutes at the end when we're down. Just go at it. We're going to have a go at these today. And as Dermot said, if you lose and you've had a go and they come off there and they've left everything on the pitch, you know, because if a boxer goes in the ring and he loses and he ain't done nothing, you go, well, what's the point of that? But if someone's give it their all and they can't give no more, you go, fair play, mate. You know, and that's all we can ask for him today is for him to give it a go. If he puts a good team or a crap team and he don't give it a go, the mentality and the belief ain't there, then we might as well just not bother saving the energy and just, you know, giving them the win. Because you're at that point where it is. If he's worrying about next week, then don't play today. Do you know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
He's not in a position where he can worry about next week. You know, at the end of the day, he has to win. He has to start delivering wins now. And at the end of the day, Spurs fans have a rich history with the FA Cup. So does Tottenham in general as a football club. So if he throws out a team, you know, that no one has belief in from the very beginning, you know, in terms of you're questioning why is he being thrown in, he will lose whatever goodwill he has left. That will all erode today if it doesn't go out the right way. And at the end of the day, I agree with you. Like, I didn't agree with it earlier on the season against Newcastle. I made the case I can understand it, you know, with the games coming in thick and fast, but I didn't agree with the rotation. I do think he should have prioritized that Newcastle game, that Carabao Cup. However, he's not in a position where he has to prioritize one or the other here. It's 7 days till the West Ham game. This should be his only fucking focus today, and it should be the best lineup possible to try and get a job done against Villa. If he puts out the best lineup and it doesn't go well and stuff like that, of course, we're going to analyze it and, you know, moan and bitch and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you know, at least then you can't have questions around team selection. That chalks that one off the board. You don't have questions then around, you know, him not taking it seriously and stuff like that. So I'd argue he should put out his, you know, strongest lineup today. And also Spurs on the cover says, what are you basing his opinion on the bigger game on? To be fair to Dermo, I think, you know, it was based on, you know, many managers at Tottenham Hotspur have sort of deprioritized cup competitions in favor of league games and stuff like that. You know, it's been a known thing. Pochettino, you know, done it at times where he sort of deprioritized some cup games in favor of league because back then, the ambition was top 4 at all costs. Now that seems to have gone, you know, now all of a sudden we're set the managers being down in 15th and stuff like that. But back then, you know, the ambition was top 4 at all costs. So they were sort of put in a position where they had to prioritize the league. So I do think, you know, Dermot's opinion is coming from a place of merit there on that one, to be fair. And believe me, I'll be the first one to sit here and disagree with people if I think, you know, it's baseless or stuff like that. So I do think, you know,
and as you have done on many of pre-match, you have roundly disagreed from my opinion. Listen, Dave, I've got to jump off.
So I'll put your link in here now.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks.
It's my boys. I like watching you two go at it. He watched the other day. He said, well, where's Dermot? He said, I missed that.
No, do you know what? I was saying this. Chaos. Me and Dave could disagree live on stream, but I tell you, he's one of the nicest people to meet off stream. He's the same on as he is off. He's a perfect gentleman. So listen, guys, I'm going for a 3-0 Tottenham win today. We're going to go out there and we're going to batter them. Spurs are on the way to Wembley. And what more can you say? It's Tottenham's trophy to lose. Dave, thanks for having me on, bud. And I will see you next week, I suppose, for the pre-match. And I'll be on next week.
Yeah.
Stay safe, Dermot.
See you later, Dermot.
See you later. Come on, you Spurs.
Bye-bye.
Guys, Dermot's link here is in the chat, so make sure you get on and get over and smash that subscribe button and show a fellow Spurs fan some support. Lazy 8 says, what does be the marker for him not taking it seriously? Kinski in goal? I would argue, yeah. Now, I know people are going to say, Dave, that's crazy. Number 2s usually get cup competitions. But he hasn't played them all season long. Why would you just throw him in today? And it backs up the reports that I tried to highlight in the first international window that I think went under the radar and a lot of people missed, where reports came out saying Kinski was regressing behind the scenes. And the fact that he hasn't played any games for Tottenham sort of suggests that maybe there's a lot of truth to that as well. And let's face it, the Carrier hasn't been in the greatest form all season. So that's
the thing that makes you think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. That's the thing. What, Stevie?
I was going to say, Davo, let me ask you guys this question. Does it necessarily matter the lineup? because the reality is we have a tendency to take our foot off the gas regardless of the lineup that actually gets put on the pitch. Now, where I will agree with you is that Thomas Frank has already come out publicly and said that he's going to go full strength. And so the notion of that there's going to be, Kinski in goal or whatever the case may be, I just don't necessarily buy it. I actually think Thomas Frank understands exactly the position that he's in right now. The lack of credibility and the lack of trust that he has from the from the fans, and whether or not he kind of feels a little pressure from the board himself. I just don't think he's going to put himself in a position where he can be second guessed. Because if he does go out on the Shield, I think that actually kind of buys him a little bit more time. But what I will say is that for me, whatever the formation, whatever the lineup is out, me personally, I think that is going to be secondary because of the results that we have seen. And I go back to that Sunderland match because that was a perfect example, and it encapsulates Thomas Frank, his tenure so far, is that we did everything right in that first 40 minutes. We were pressing high. We were progressing the ball into good positions for us to get shots on net. We were the ones that were on the front foot. We nicked a goal from Ben Davis, and then for whatever reason, we just decided, we're good. That's a big enough lead. We're just going to sit back and we're going to revert to the style of football that nobody absolutely likes. And all of a sudden, Sunderland kicked into the game, nicked the equalizer, and all of a sudden, 3 points that were a massive 3 points ended up being one, and we continue to drop points. Mm-hmm. So for me, this game, it can't be a situation where it's like where if we do happen to find ourselves in the lead, we have to continue to push forward. The intensity has to be able to translate from the first half to the second half, and we actually have to put together our first full 90 minutes of the season. Like that's to me is the most important aspect of this game, because it cannot be another approach. Yeah, it cannot be a tale of two halves anymore. Like, we have seen enough of that. Like, is this team capable of putting together a full 90 from start to finish, where at the end of the game, they can actually look at themselves in the mirror and say, you know what, we actually earned this one today.
Yeah, absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
I would argue, I don't even think we have great halves. I just think we play in patches in halves, to be honest with you. And that's my big problem, even when we start off well in games, after a certain point, we sort of sit back, allow the opposition then to come on to us without really asserting any pressure on them, really asserting any dominance or tackles in there and stuff. And then in the second half, we start off usually well just after half time, dip for the rest of the half. And then towards the end, we go and try and save the game, which anyone can do. That's all just nonsense and fakery bullshit.
I don't take much of the stats and that. I use my eyes on my end, but the last few weeks I've been looking at them, the graphs of the attacking, and where you got mate, we are just so behind. We'll have one little spike there, and they'll have 3 or 4, then we'll have one. It's going on that metric. It tells you ain't going to score a lot.
Yeah, we only go forward when we're absolutely compelled to go forward, right? And it was because we conceded goals against Bournemouth, where at the end of the game we were actually pressing forward and trying to nick that goal. Otherwise, if we had a 1-goal lead, there's no way we would have been compelled to go.
We wouldn't be doing it. No.
We wouldn't be doing it, right? And so that to me is the long and short of this game. It's like we put ourselves in such crappy positions in mid-game, and there's no contingency. And the only time we push forward is when we're in those type of situations, and we can't afford to do that against Aston Villa. We've already seen it once this year at the stadium against Aston Villa, where we started actually fairly strong, and then once they got into the match and they started ramping up their intensity, we allowed them to pit us back. Yeah. We allowed them to do that instead of actually matching intensity with intensity, and that's my biggest fear coming into this one.
Controlled
it will play out the exact same way.
Even the games we've won, we haven't really controlled the game and put the other side to bed. Where maybe we're not scoring, but you don't think like that other team's going to score against you. It just even in the wins, we haven't got that consistency of even just one game out the 20 odd he's had. We ain't been the dominant team and the stable team in any match.
But that's because we're coached to set up and counter-attack teams and negate their threats rather than set up to go and coached and to go and dominate games. And that's why we're all sitting here frustrated. That's why we're all sitting here annoyed. We want to see Spurs in possession. We want to see them, create moves, create chances. I get, people have their problems around the quality of the squad, but to have only 9.9 shots, which is the lowest XG since up the start, or the lowest shots per game since up the started, it's nowhere near good enough. And that is
Even if the quality ain't good enough, but are they in their maximum? That's the point. So if you've got bad quality and then they're not hitting their level, you're even further down the ladder, aren't you?
Like, the reason why I say it's more of a this is more of a manager problem than a squad problem, because if half the squad were performing and the other half weren't, then you could say, fair enough, yeah, there's a clear sort of difference in quality within the squad. You got to keep moving them bad players out, bringing in good players. But when no one's performing, when there's not even one good sort of player out there over exceeding and excelling and stuff like that, at what point then do you look at the manager, the tactics, what they're being asked to do? Are they buying into the message? Do they believe in what they're being asked to do? And stuff like that. And that's where I'm at with it personally.
Martin, to counter it twice, I would probably make an argument where we actually looked good from start to finish. That City match, second match of the season, we actually looked good from start to finish in that match. But then again, City was, not even into their season yet. And so you can kind of brush that one off. And I would probably say maybe Everton on the road. It seemed like we were pretty solid from start to finish. But in that one, we didn't score from the run of play at all. Or maybe we did with Papsar's late goal, but
that's few and far between where you're trying to make the argument of, well, we have done it, but we shouldn't be in that position where we're trying to find, a semi-good, it's, I don't know, I think we're just so beaten down with it. We're taking a little bit of scraps to enjoy it.
Well, just in this one, go ahead, Dave. Sorry, Ben.
No, go on, Stevie. Finish your point.
I was going to say, because of the injury issues within the midfield, the midfielders pick themselves. Polina, Gray, and Xavi from that standpoint. But one of the things that I absolutely don't want to see is Rando Kolomoani playing off the right hand side. And we saw in that Bournemouth game when the Sunderland game when Kudus came off, the rhythm completely changed when RKM went on to the right hand side, and whatever momentum we created kind of came to a halt when he ended up on the right hand side. And so from that standpoint, I would rather keep RKM on the bench, because at that 60th minute, bringing on a fresh striker is going to be a little bit more advantageous for us. And then also, if Dominic Solanke makes the bench today, I also kind of want to see Dominic Solanke, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes at the end of the match. You know what I mean? Like having Destiny Udogie and Solanke back, that's actually going to be a little bit more beneficial for us.
Well, there is breaking news that Dominic Solanke and Destiny Udogie is in the match day squad today. They have been pictured walking through the stadium with their boot bags. So it'll be interesting to see how fit they are, or is it we forcing them back onto the bench, but not actually going to play them just because we're short in numbers. But big up, Nick. Hopefully we can get the job done today, my man. Hopefully, you can be celebrating a win over there in New York, and good to see you, and Happy New Year to you and the family, Nick. Absolute legend this guy is. Big up, Nick. We've got Simon Cohen says, afternoon, boys. Big up, Simon. Good to see you. Hopefully you and the family are keeping well as well. And Ribsy says, full strength Spurs right now is like full strength ginger ale, not exactly spicy. Absolutely spot on. But guys, I'm going to take a quick minute to do this because I haven't do this today, and to be honest with you, I don't do this anywhere near enough. But guys, if you could just please do, if you are enjoying the show, please do the small things that really help these channels out here, which is smashing that like button. If you're new, smashing that subscribe button. And if you feel like you want to go the extra mile, you can grab a membership, gift memberships, or even send in a super chat or whatever with your talking point, and we will make sure to give it a very good discussion. But look, let's keep it moving. Like I said, Dominic Solanke and Destiny Udogie are both back in the squad today. We are waiting for the squad in the lineup to officially come out, but eagle eyes in and around the ground have already spotted them and have pictures of them up on socials. But guys, I want to get into a bit of a talk quickly about the formation that maybe we're expecting today. I mean, normally we'd expect Frank to line up in a 4-2-3-1, but with the number of long-term injuries in midfield across the front line, is his hand being forced into a back three with wing backs simply to cope with the lack of options, further up the pitch? Or do we think he will persist with 4-2-3-1?
I think
Jack made a great point.
It is that bad but would it be? Romero's not in, right? That's a different subject why he's not in. But if then you bring in Danso Dragusin, right, and then and Mickey van der Ven, they've all got a bit of pace, and they've all got individual qualities. Like Danso will get stuck in and move a little bit forward, so they can all bounce off each other in different aspects and cover across that back line. whoever the wing backs are, give them a little bit more freedom and tell the defenders, you got to work your arse off a bit here. But then, as I say, you can try and Villa's got a very good midfield, so you've got to try and match that up, because we know you lose and win games in the midfield battle, and we ain't got the best midfield. So if we can do a job in the midfield and we've got a shored up defence, you already got half a chance. Then we come to the scoring. That's going to be by hook or crook. I don't think we can try and work out patterns of play that we're going to get down the wings, put through balls in. That's just going to have to sort of fester on its own and work something out. But if we can spread the back three, as you say, and we can have a still good competitive middle, and then you've still got the wing backs helping out their midfielders to keep that width, we've got half a chance there. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying earlier. I think he's got to do something different today, because the 4-2-3-1 is very predictable. People are in their positions and they're all a bit lost. You see them all attacking and we've got no midfield. Then you come back and they're all compact in the middle. They don't know where they are.
Right.
So,
no,
so
100%.
today, it's just got to be different.
I think there is an element that maybe his hands are forced in, into that sort of lineup today. But, I think Jack made a great point to me yesterday on the members preview that, with it being at home, I don't think Spurs fans will accept anything less than sort of go for it. And I think the 4-2-3-1 sends out more of an attacking message than it does maybe the three at the centre backs and the wing back system, which I think many Spurs fans would sort of understand if he does go with that. Maybe there is an element of him being forced and protecting some players that he's got further up the pitch and stuff like that. But I don't think it sends out the right message or really garner that sort of belief before kickoff to get that crowd and the atmosphere going. So,
but that's if you're doing the 3-5-2 and more offensive, or you can do the 5-3-2 more defensive, just by pulling them two players back 20 yards makes a whole lot of difference of whether we're attacking or defending. If you're doing the defending, you're waving the white flag at the beginning. If you're a bit more on your front, it might. Let's touch it.
When we actually saw this team play, a 5-3-2 or a 3-4-2-1, in certain matches, we didn't actually have a press, and we were actually set up to be far more defensive than we were. That's the argument, right? If you are for instance, or like if you're Oliver Glasner and he plays a 3-4-2-1, it's a counterattacking system, but he also has press. He also keeps his player higher up. When Thomas Frank uses whatever variation of it is, we're usually set back and we're usually withdrawn. We actually allow teams to come to us, and we generally 100%. Are supposed to be pressing at the midway line, but we don't even see that. And if we actually see a 5-3-2 or a 3-4-2-1, chances are pretty good we're not going to see that. And this is where I kind of agree with Dave, because in a 4-2-3-1, we're going to initially see a high press to start this match. But the other thing, which I think is actually more important, because if we do go with a 5-3-1-2 or what in that variation, the problem is 3-5-2. We're starting with two strikers, and so that means Kolo Muani is going to be on the pitch to start the game, which only leaves Dominic Solanke coming off the bench at whatever point in time. And you wonder whether or not Dominic Solanke is actually slated to get minutes today.
Muani up front and Xavi just behind in a false 9-10, whatever you want to do it, because you've got the midfielders doing that. There is variations in there. Yeah. If he's going to stick to his rigid defensive and go, well, I'm going to have two up there, then it ain't going to work. He's got to be a bit more inventive and attack-minded, then it could work. If you're going to be defensive-minded, you're asking for an ID. So it comes down to him to tell him what the instructions are.
But we haven't seen any nuance from Thomas Frank. That's actually kind of asking quite a bit, right?
That's
so that's right. That's why for me, it's probably going to be a 4-2-3-1, just because from that standpoint, we're going to be able to press from the go and put ourselves in a little bit better position to maybe nick a goal or two, so we can potentially kick on in this match. I just look at this. It's like, if he's going to go with a back five, essentially what it tells me is that we're just going to be withdrawn and sitting deep for a good portion of this game. And, when we do counter, it's going to be few and far in between. And of course, since we're not direct, we don't play direct, we're not going to see that link through the middle of the park. It's going to be playing it off the wing backs and because
that's why that 3-5-2 has to be offensive and not go, look, they've got the ball, run back. You've got to take that back free. You're doing this job. You're covering that whole back line. You're going to have a couple of midfielders in there. You're going to have your wingers. you're going to have Xavi in the playmaker, and you're going to have Richie or Moani up front, you can be aggressive with it. But if you're going to do that, well, when they've got the ball, you get 5 in defence. Villa are just going to mop up and have a field day.
Yeah.
It comes down to him. And any formation, it can. If he tells them to be right, if we do this with a 4 at the back and the double pivot in front, we're not going to get beat. Straight away, you're on the defensive because you're now putting 6 at the back already.
Sure.
So it just comes down to it. The players and the positions are one thing, but if you're all told to go and then just leave your back line safe, you're attacking on the front foot, and that's the difference, not the formation.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, instructions and intent is everything, regardless of what sort of formation you put out. It's all about what you're asking them to do within that, and does what you're asking them to actually work. So let's wait and see what happens today. But I think it was an interesting discussion to see where maybe fans fall on that one. And it does seem like, we're all split, which is no surprise, to be honest with you. Spurs fans are split on absolutely everything.
But you know what? That's the thing, though, Dave, because there is no, way of playing that we go, what he's going to do, so we don't have this discussion. All 3 of us sit here, have all got 3 different things, and in our 3 different systems, we can play offensive, attacking, defensive. It's just crazy, and none of us know what he's going to do. We really don't.
With the it's wild, Martin and Dave. The interesting thing, just because of our limited squad availability, what would be and I've been saying this now for a few weeks, but it just for me, it's like the formation that probably suits this team best is actually going 4-4-2. Just because of
I can see that. Yeah.
What I don't want to see is that stupid Bergwijn experiment. He sets up 4-2-3-1, plays a left winger, 1 striker through the middle, and nobody out on the right. If he does something like that today, despite injuries or personnel available, I'm going to lose my fucking mind, because I'm not being funny, right? I'm a little fat Irish leprechaun. I sit here, I spout my mouth off, I give my opinions. But even I could see from minute 1, and I highlighted it very early on in the game, not having a right winger and having no out ball, it is going to be a huge problem in this game. It's going to be so easy to set up against, so easy to read, and so easy to stop Tottenham. And once Bournemouth copped on to what we were doing with Lucas Bergwijn and not playing him as a right winger, then all of a sudden their game became very, very easy. And we became very lackluster, didn't look like scoring, and stuff like that. And that's because he's playing these hybrid things, thinking he's the clever guy in the room.
Dave, that's the worrying part to it. We see it as backseat drivers, right? We all see it. Brentford and that have seen it, and they've reacted to it in game. So it's obviously glaringly obvious to non-football people, just fans, let's say, and then the people down on the pitch are watching, and he's looking over there. And he's not changing it. Yeah. There's the worrying part, that everyone else can see it, but you can't. Do you know what I mean? It's
so frustrating.
Yeah.
So frustrating. And that's, I'm not being funny, but if I can see that it's not going to work and stuff like that, then I don't understand what this guy's getting employed for and paid for, let alone all the tablets or all the fucking magnets, fucking everything else. I'm sorry. If that's what he's coming up with all of that shit available to him, I'm sorry, he's an even bigger donut than what I fucking first thought. I'm not having that shit, what he pulled with Bergwijn in terms of that experiment against Bournemouth. I'm just not having it. It's absolutely nonsensical, was never going to work, an absolute idiotic moron. And then what drives me mad is everyone praises Richarlison for coming on and changing the game. Richarlison didn't change the game. Bringing on Udebur, having a right winger, which means then you can attack down the left, through the middle, and off the right-hand side, is what changed the game.
See, that's what the telly was saying, Dave. The commentators were saying, Tottenham are different since Richie come on and that. And I'm like, no, the balance and someone half naturally in that position. Bergwijn is a centre where you put him 6, 8, 10, in that little bit. He's middle. He's not someone that goes and is going to beat his players down the side. He does a lot of running around in the middle, and he's got a lot of energy. But as I say, the balance, people talk about it as fans. Why can fans see it and make a rationale to what they're saying? You don't just say things for the sake of saying it. You're saying it because you can back up your argument or what you feel. And if he's over there, he's going to do this. But why do these managers that get paid so much money and do all these coaching courses and get their badges and they can't see simple things? It's not working.
It's because the game's become so overcomplicated with all the technology, fucking inverse, this, that, and the other. If you honestly just go back, give the players simple instructions on what they're supposed to do generally in them positions, and I think you'll see a very good sort of footballing team, a very good outfit. But the problem is people are trying to be too clever now to the point where football's oversaturated and people are going, well, I still need to come up with something different, something new. And there's been so many variations now. It's getting to the point it's borderline ridiculous. But what drives me mad is, the commentator sitting there going, Richarlison's changed this game. Go back and look at every time the ball went to his feet. Every fucking thing broke down at it. And it's like, what actually changed the game is that when we started the game, we took away 33% of our avenue going forward by not playing a right winger. Then we brought it on. Then all of a sudden we had more weight. We could attack down both sides, and that's what's changed the game. This is where I'm getting concerned that you've got commentators now that don't even understand the game, can't even, sort of speak about what they're seeing and stuff like that. It's absolutely fucking mind-boggling. Stevie, anything you want to say on that before we move on?
Yeah, and and you wonder whether or not that experiment was just down to rotation for this match in general, right? Because and correct me if I'm wrong. I think Odebear got a nice stretch in the match prior to Bournemouth, right? And so, me personally, you wonder whether or not because it was a midweek match, you wanted to rotate just so certain players were going to be available for specifically this match, right? Which, by the way, the fact that he even tried to experiment with with Bergvall on the right hand side, it just goes to show you that I guess you can say the knowledge of this guy of Thomas Frank and thinking that was actually going to be something that would actually work. But I will say though that this is a match where you're not going to be able to to experiment like that, right? If our wingers are anything other than Matisse Tell and Wilson Odebear, that lets you know. That really just lets you know.
But this is my problem, how Frank sees football. He's constantly going red zone, next game, rest this guy.
Yeah.
But the players he's resting are the players that have performed. That's my biggest bugbear. Took Sarr out of the team. Best player at the start of the season, preseason, everything else. Dropped Paulinho for 6-7 games. Xavi dropped for how long? But I wouldn't be surprised to see Matisse Tell taken out a starting lineup today. When Odebear's performed, he's dropped. And then we sit here and wonder why we're not seeing any fruitions, why we're not seeing anything, improving going forward or anything, because the minute a player performs, they're out of the team and sitting on the bench. But the guy that doesn't perform is out there starting. So if you're the guy that's performing and sitting on the bench and you're looking at it and going, well, what's this Muppet doing ahead of me? You're going to give up under this manager. And that's what we're seeing right now. This is one of the issues that I actually have with the Premier League, and people can't understand why I appreciate the championship, because at least different managers have different styles of football, and they're actually willing to try things in order to get their team kicking up. Whether it's good or bad, you're always going to see an entertaining match. With the Premier League, it seems like every single goddamn manager, with the exception of Sean Dyche, is trying to play the exact same variation and the exact same style of football. And with that, you're going to see these type of these type of decisions. I guess the question that I have for both of you today is, I think all of us agree that we're going to see that exact same variation today. But if there is any match to take the handbrake off, this would be it. You would think, correct? 100%. It's cup football. It's knockout. Why wouldn't you take the handbrake off and go for it?
It is on today. It's not like, if we get a draw today, let's not lose, we get a draw, we get a good point, we move on. There ain't none of that today. It's 90 minutes football, crack on, and let's get this over the line. Then we can you can all have a day off tomorrow. We'll all meet up Monday and we'll work out how to beat West Ham. Right? And forget West Ham until tomorrow. Because if you lose today, you're still going to go in tomorrow and you've still got West Ham next week. So it's 90 minutes of football. Going just for themselves. Forget us. Forget the paying fans that are going, all that. Just for you. Go out and do something for you. So then you can give the middle finger to the fans, and you have got the right to stand there and go, you don't know what it is. But when you're losing and your manager is playing, like as Dave's saying, he's playing a good play as well, you're benched. You're this. We don't know formations. We don't know systems. We don't know patterns of play. You've got no given right to stand out there and have a go at the fans. So just for themselves, to give them some belief and something to go, look, everyone's against us here. Let's just show them. Like, you've got to have some fight and some balls in yourselves to make yourselves look stupid and prove us wrong. Today's the day. Just go out and have it. Oh, here we go.
Absolutely. Shake says, get Martin in as caretaker. He's absolutely on that. And big up.
No, no good with a broom. No good with a broom.
And big up Tom Harris as well. Been a while, Dave. Hope all is well. All is good with me. Hope all is good with you as well, my man. My long lost brother or something like that. You know, same surname. Big up, my man. Well, the lineup is out, as you can see, guys. It is Vicario in goals. Danzo comes in for the suspended Christian Romero with Mickey van der Ven as centre back. Then it looks like you got Ben Davies coming in at left back and Pedro Porro at right back. Then moving into midfield, you have Archie Gray, and it's looking like Paulinia as your pivot partnership. Then it does look like then you've got Xavi in your number 10 role, and then Tell probably off the left, Udebert off the right with Richarlison through the middle. So he has gone
4-2-3-1.
4-2-3-1. Absolutely spot on. And I'll read that again because I butchered it. Vicario in goals, Porro at right back, Ben Davies at left back. At centre back, then you've got Danzo and Mickey van der Ven, your double pivot of Archie Gray and João Paulinia. Off the right, you've got Udebert. Off the left, you've got Tell. Through the middle, then in the cam, you've got Xavi Simons, and up front, Richarlison has come back into the lineup, the club's top goal scorer. And then on the subs bench, you've got Kinski, Dragosin, Idoji, and Solanke back in the squad, like we told you earlier, along with Jed Spence, Cole Mawani, Dane Scarlett, and then you've got young Junior Byfield coming in onto the bench, also along with Williams Barnett. Be interesting to see whether they get rolled out or whether they're just, filling out spaces on the bench. But regardless, what an experience for the two kids today. And look, a special commemorative sort of graphic here to go with it as well. And Ben Davies is wearing the jersey that we will be wearing tonight, the white on white, all white, lily white under the lights. What more do people want? We look good. Let's see if we can live up to that and play good today. Martin, let's get your thoughts on the team here.
Well, he ain't doing what I was thinking and doing something different. He is going back. Ben Davies is getting old. We know that, but I do like. I'm one of them people that like balance. I grew up in a world where, I'm a right footer, but I was that crap. I was played on the left wing, so I was the original innovator of the cutting in from the right hand side, wrong footing. Nice. So I'll take the blame for the whole Premiership and everything doing that. What I did back in the 70s. But I do like balance. I do like left on the left, right on the right. I am very one of them. So I don't mind that Davis is on there for that. I don't think, as long as he ain't asked to go bombing up the wing and do all that and just stay and defending, go out your half and do all that, because he does like to go forward and he runs up and then it's a long way back for a 30-odd-year-old guy, right? When you've got some young 21, 22-year-old players that can run, like he's treading water running back. So as long as he's got a disciplined role, I don't mind it. And the same with Porro. But I don't really know what to say. It's just it's just the same as the other day, isn't it? It's no different. But if people are told to do their job, Tell looked good on the left the other day. Yeah. But I think while we're threadbare, the likes of Odebear and Tell have to get 3 or 4 or 5 games in a row, then we can judge them. We can't judge them on 90 minutes because one week they have a good one week they have a bad one. So you're getting a conflict of thing. If we can give them 3 or 4 games in the next couple of weeks, then we've got a bit more of an understanding to judge them properly. But listen, it ain't a weakened team. So, it's no different to the last couple of games you've had. So he's put a good team out, which shows me he's being serious. All I want him to do now is to tell them players that they can win it, they can do it, and let's go for it. And don't worry about all that not lose stuff. It's today is a we must go for it, not a we must not lose.
Absolutely. And I wonder, is the Ben Davies inclusion for what he said against Sunderland, where he said he wants a left footer playing left back so that we can transition the ball.
The next week he changed it again.
I know.
Yeah.
But maybe to the point I think someone made earlier on about Udber, but maybe Davies is a guy where his legs he can't play to weekend and midweek, and maybe that's why he changed it sort of against Bournemouth, to allow Ben Davies to be fit and available for this game. But look, it'd be interesting. Look, usually I'll be throwing my toys out of the pram when I see Ben Davies start, but he did play well against Sunderland and he scored. So let's see if he can replicate that again today. Steve, my man, I'm going to put the channel link in here. What's your thoughts on the lineup, sir?
I absolutely like it. And it's something that I was mentioning yesterday that I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Ben Davies take the pitch today, because from that standpoint against against Sunderland, that first half, he looked absolutely up for it. And that was one of the things that was actually kind of a nice little pleasant surprise. Ben, he was pushing forward. But the other thing, the progressive passing to the back shoulder of a guy like Matisse Tell that would allow Tell to run on the ball was something that we absolutely needed. And, early in that match, you saw Matisse Tell, a little bit lively. But when the team was building up and playing off the left side, when the ball came back to Ben Davies, he was actually trying things. He was actually putting balls into the box to the near post. And then, of course, on the set piece, he was able to nick a goal in that first half as well, too. And so from that standpoint, I kind of expected Ben Davies to be in the lineup today. And, fair enough, Thomas Frank, felt the exact same way. One of the things that I do like is the fact that, we didn't go with a two-striker formation, and that allows us to bring in Randall Colomwani or a Dominic Slinky if he chooses to go that route. The only thing that I'm a little worried about is that we don't necessarily have a winger to be able to come off the bench. And so from that standpoint, we're going to see a lot of Matisse Tell and Wilson Odebear. Fair enough. I actually happen to like Matisse Tell. And it feels like with a good run of games, maybe we'll actually see something from Matisse. But this is the best lineup that Thomas Frank could put out there. By far, this is the best. And so from that standpoint, fair game. Now it's up to the players to go out there and deliver a full 90. I think they're capable. We'll just see exactly what Thomas Frank has in mind, especially if we get on the board early. Is he gonna keep his foot on the gas, or is he gonna take it off? So we'll quickly find out. But I from the standpoint, if this is the best we have to offer, I like it.
Yeah. Well, look, I do think there was an element where some of his hand was forced in terms of midfield selection and stuff like that today.
Yeah.
But look, all you could do is get behind it. What I will say, guys, is, you look at some of the fixtures that have already happened. It looks like Newcastle are being bounced out of the competition as we speak. What other Premier League teams are gone? Crystal Palace is gone. Everton are gone. Nottingham Forest are gone. All Premier League teams that have been knocked out. And if you can knock out Villa today, then there's already a lot of Premier League teams already gone. And then you've also got Man United and Brighton, which means another one will be gone. And I fancy QPR to beat West Ham as well. So it would really open up the competition if we could win today for us to have a realistic chance of going on a run. So the pressure is on. Let's try and deliver today. Get through, and then hopefully we'll get an easier draw in the next round, which you would argue we deserve if we can get over Aston Villa today. Guys, please make sure you get over and subscribe to Stateside Footy. Make sure you show him some love. Fellow Spurs fan here gives up a lot of his time on the weekends, off work to be able to come here and do this. So please get over and give him the love. Also, massive respect to Martin, guys, as well. Gives up his time as well, to come on here, even though he's got things to do, people to see and places to be. He's in the middle of, moving and stuff like that and decorating and everything else. So, fair play to Martin for giving up his time and being here as well. Martin, really appreciate you, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. Enjoy it all the time, even in our dark days.
Oh, well, hopefully today is one of the bright days.
Yeah, today's a highlight. This is all good today.
Do we have any score predictions today? Are we going to chance it with predictions, or is that something that
Go for it.
3-1. 3-1 Tottenham. 3-1 Tottenham. Come on.
Stevie?
See, here's the thing. I know the intricacies of Thomas Frank, and that has me worried. There is no nuance and there is no contingency. And a big part of me thinks that there's going to be a chance where we're going to get an early goal. But as Villa gets into the game and they start getting their feet, we saw the first time around they're not afraid to take shots out of the box, and we don't close down. And a big part of me thinks that eventually that's going to those eggs are going to come back to roost. And I think we go out today, unfortunately. 3-1 Villa.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. I'll
Get
go
rid of Steve. Get Steve off the panel. Come on, get him off. We don't
Subscribe
need
to my
that
channel.
Well, look, hopefully we can get the win today. I'm gonna go 2-1 Tottenham. You know, hoping because we haven't scored 2 goals in ages, but I'm gonna go, 2-1 Tottenham and see what we can do there. And the Outlads in, he says Ben Davies actually played in 1901. I wouldn't mind that jersey. Actually, does suit him there. To be fair, but that big game today, my man. Make sure you get a nice cold ready to go and let's try and be calm today, Let's try and be calm, and hopefully we can get the win today. Big day under the lights, FA Cup.
Hey, you're always calm until the kickoff, and once that whistle goes, you're calm until the whistle goes, and then the first little bit you're off, and there's no stopping you. So
yeah,
you might get 10 minutes of calm today.
Dave and Dave.
Well, that's where I get it from. I get it from my outline.
Yeah,
I absolutely love the FA Cup, and I respect the history and the tradition of the FA Cup, and I really respect Spurs, history with the FA Cup, and whether that was the 91 FA Cup run, the 80-81 FA Cup run that went to a replay, the first replay since 1970, and so like this tournament was always a crapshoot, and that's we saw some of our best performances in the FA Cup, and I really hope that I'm goddamn wrong about this today, and I hope Spurs go out there and absolutely take it to them, because again, I actually do think they're there for the taking. But again, it's going to be what's going to be the mentality of this team coming out on the pitch. And do they actually have that same mentality that this is actually a very special tournament in which to win?
Well, let's wait and see. Do they love the FA Cup the same way we do? And by the way, this in the corner here, Slanky question mark, and then the picture of Ian Wright, with that head teacher. It's a brilliant humor. But guys, that's it from us. We will be back here in half an hour. Sorry, not even half an hour's time. About 15 minutes time, myself and Jacko will be back for the watch along for the big game today. FA Cup Day. Let's fucking go. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.